my little morning stars, to
What to watch now,
where we talk about what's streaming on Netflix right now. And in today's episode, we are continuing to talk about Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, Season 2, Episode 2, Chapter 13, The Passion of Sabrina Spellman. Jesus fucking Christ. I swear, by the end of this, I'm gonna just be reading like a chapter-long title. It's so long and convoluted. But I have to say, and keep continuing to report and be proven happily wrong, that this show is amazing! It's not getting bad. It's still so good, and I would argue it's getting even better with its metaphors and changing direction, and honestly focusing on things that I care more about. So, loving it! These are my little snaps of appreciation. And if you enjoy talking about these episodes as much as I do, please consider becoming a Patreon supporter. I have lots of rewards and secret podcasts only we will know about. Either way, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss anything. But let's move on to this amazing episode. I love this episode so much! It actually made me weirdly feel for Lilith, which I don't think I ever said out loud on the episode. Miss Wardwell is Lilith, which is really cool. I loved that reveal at the end of season 1. I liked how she went from being someone who you kind of... Okay. Do you ever get bored of villains? You're like, I get it, you're evil. Ooh, you're stopping their plans. And you don't root for them. You just find them as like a tedious obstacle to overcome. The best villains are ones you want to understand or kind of give you a fun show, which is why a lot of people like DC villains. That's probably the strongest, a lot of people say it's the strongest asset of DC, but if you're a DC fan, you can make your own objections or subjections or whatever it's called. Anyways, Miss Wardwell has become someone that's like, slowly coaxing Sabrina to the dark side we kind of understand her perspective. By the end of this episode, you really feel for her. I mean, like, even Sabrina feels for her, whether she's not aware that Miss Wardwell is Lilith, but she even feels for her and questions the Dark Lord's intentions with her. And in general, you start to have fun seeing her fight against the same side she is technically on, but not in the pursuit to, like, help Sabrina and help other people. She's still evil. She still has bad intentions, but they're selfish intentions, so you kind of can understand her perspective better, is the way I want to put it. Okay, so first we start the episode with Lilith summoning the Dark Lord. I love that he's talking again, that we get to know his personality. We get to see that he truly lives up to his name of something like Master of Deceiving, something like that. And we get to understand better his intentions and how he's tricking Lilith. And Lilith is not dumb. She's a really smart woman. And she's starting to see through the cracks. She's starting to question the Dark Lord. She has been being manipulated for all this time. Because when we learn through the play that's being put on in this episode, Lilith is, like, insanely old. Like, she's technically older than Jesus. Like, the woman looks great for her age, is what I'm trying to say. She is starting to realize that maybe her ultimate goal, which apparently she was promised forever ago, to be, like, basically his right-hand side, his romantic interest, so to speak, might not happen. She's done all this work, and she might be replaced by a younger model, but more so like, look at all this dedication I've given you. This person is a half-mortal. She's not even worthy of your greatness, your purity, blah, 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 all that jazz. And of course, the Dark Lord, he doesn't want opinions. It's one opinion only, and it's his, and he's pissed about it. But this is how he's smart. I don't think he's afraid of Miss Wardwell, or specifically Lilith, defying him or having some sort of power to take him down, because he can't be. I think he just truly loves manipulating. I think he just likes the art form of it. And in addition to it, he is smart as well. And he knows it's easier to get people that are on his side and work with him have less resistance. So he can't just be like, listen to what I'm saying or I'm going to cut your head off. It's easier to show, okay, I will let you play your game. You are a worthy adversary. Let's have fun for a little bit. But at the end of the day, I'm tricking you to respect me more and to then be like a wonderful tool I will use further. It's the same thing with Sabrina, if you notice. So we know now, like, that he for sure wants Sabrina to be his wife, as I will keep calling her. But I don't think, I mean, let's be real, he is a very strong contender as a supernatural creature. He could just pluck her out of her life and bring her to hell and just force her to be his wife. But he's not dumb. Maybe that's even from personal experience because he was technically someone who resisted his dad. His dad kicked him out, basically was like, I will make you do what I want to do. And that didn't work on him, so he kind of understands, oh, I just had an epiphany. Maybe he's so into manipulation because he's aware that if you force someone to do something, it's not as successful if you can trick them into thinking they want it. So he doesn't want to just, take Sabrina and be like, you're now mine, deal with it, fall in love with me. And I think he really does want that. He wants to get Sabrina to want to do evil things, to want to be with him. And that's going to take time and coercion, whatever, you know what I'm saying. And let's be real, the man has all the time in the world. To him, waiting a couple years is but seconds of his lifelong life. Wow, I am so repetitive today. Anyway, so moving forward, they make a deal between the two of them that, and her argument is that Sabrina chooses between the light and the dark. She'll probably more likely choose the light hand side, but she's not saying that because she is worried that Sabrina will ultimately become his. She's worried she'll be replaced. So that's her argument. That's her little tricky argument in pretending that she's really on the Dark Lord's side. Dark Lord can see right through that, and he makes the argument of being like, no, girl, I'm going to get even her, Little Miss Innocence, Little Miss Stand Up for Everything. I'm going to get even her to do something bad, because in the end, I will not be questioned. I am the OG in this, religion that I've created about myself. So after they make this deal, he starts to basically regularly show up in Sabrina's, what's it called? When you're in the side of your eye, periphery. In her periphery, her dreams. He's always snarling. Marks of his claws are on her back. I mean, he's even showing up in small ways, like how he gave Roz chicken pox, and that includes Dorcas as well. And he's trying to slowly influence her. They have an interesting conversation, Sabrina and her aunt, because of this. By the way, I love this buildup of him showing up in the middle of the night, claw grabbing at her bed. He's there to ask her finally to do something. You think it's going to be this big, because I think initially Sabrina's thinking, oh, he's going to come ask me to do something really terrible, as in, I think she's even aware it could be apocalyptic level, because up till now, no one has really disclosed that they've all most of them have been approached by the Dark Lord. Not everyone, but a lot of them it is. It's more common than you think. And that being said, he asks her, he just goes, I want you to steal some gum. And she's like, what? And he's like, bye now, and just disappears into the shadows. And she even considers it. But of course, Lilith is in the shadows, popping up, trying to weirdly be on Sabrina's side and coax her into the light, which is fun to see that, switching of sides and ironically actually being helpful in Sabrina's life and guide her towards a better path. So Sabrina doesn't ultimately steal the gum, but that ends up leading the Dark Lord to kind of pop up more and more and more. There's a play going on at the Unseen Arts Academy. And I think it's called The Passion of Lucifer Morningstar. That's why the episode's called The Passion of Sabrina Spellman, because it's a little bit about her passion with Harvey and other boys and stuff like that. And he's trying to coax her into taking Dorcas's, which, by the way, why the hell is she named Dorcas? Dorcas's place in the play. I love, by the way, when Dorcas was acting and Prudence and her sister look at each other like, we love our sister, but damn does she suck at this. Damn does she suck at acting. And Sabrina thinks these little coaxing methods are purely about him influencing her. It is, a little bit. It is something like if you say no to one thing, he will increase the level of what he's asking you, so you better do the thing he asks or he will make it worse and worse. But we kind of get this little sneak peek that by the end of the episode, I think no matter what, he would have tried to make Sabrina take Dorcas's role. Because in the end, when we get to watch the actual play, it's basically a giant fanfic for him. And he's kind of living out his little fantasy, like it's fun for him. But we'll get to that in a moment. While this is happening, she's feeling more and more crazier by the second. And it's understandable. I love the advice she has with Hilda. And this is when we get to the whole conversation. She explains that when she is being asked to do this thing, like she's not sure if she wants to do it. She kind of wants to resist him because she's afraid. Is this one thing going to lead to another? And will it be easier and easier for me to say yes? I think that's I'm so happy Sabrina is very smart. And you really truly have to be a master of deceiver, because if you want this worthy adversary, this person by your side that you respect, and he does respect Sabrina and her brain, you gotta be that good at tricking her, because she's gonna see between, the lines or the cracks, whatever you want to call it. And she can see what he's trying to do. Hilda tells a story about how she was asked to push a button on a wooden box. And she did, she pushed it. But it drove her crazy. She was worried something really bad happened from her pushing that button. She broke open the box and she learned it was empty. It was kind of less of a twisted way of the Dark Lord. I don't think the Dark Lord wanted her to break the box open or cared if she did or didn't. He wasn't trying to play with her just to fuck with her. He just needed to know she was going to do it. She was willing to do it. That's all he needed to have proof of. But we're going to get back to that idea by the end of the episode and that conversation of it all. So she's like, okay, well, he's asking me to do this stuff. I really am going to keep resisting him because I understand the avalanche it could open. And so her aunt gives her great advice. She goes, this is the time when you probably should be surrounded by your mortal friends. Why don't you consider going back to your regular human school, at least for a little while? Kind of figure out who you are again. Go with the friends you love so much. And that can often be like a great shield within itself. And this is something really interesting that happens during this episode, because it kind of backfires. She goes back to the school, and she isn't welcomed as warmly as she had hoped. I don't think she's dumb. She's not surprised it didn't work out that way. It's like everyone is, for the most, happy she's there, but it's still awkward stepping stones between the group, especially the whole Harvey and Sabrina thing. And it's only worse with Harvey and Roz. They clearly look like they're developing something, which, by the way, okay, listen. We don't need a repeat of, like, Team Edward and Team Jacob, all that bullshit. But essentially it's kind of coming down to, like, Team Nick Scratch and Team Harvey Kinkle, if we're going to, like, talk about teams here. And they both have great assets. I really do like both of them. I would be happy with her to kind of bounce around between the two, have either one, whatever. But so far, even in season 1, Harvey Kinkle's kind of a cock. He's kind of an asshole. Because I think what defines a person is how they act when things aren't all sweet and beautiful. I think of this one story a comedian told. I was listening to her podcast, and she was dating someone for a couple months, and he was like, oh, I love you. And she's like, no offense, but I don't know if you love me because I'm paying for everything. Everything's kind of sunshine and roses. What happens if the water gets rough? I'm not sure if you're ready for that. I have to kind of wait and see. And what happened? It got a little rough. He got a little mad. And this person said to her, a lot of unforgivable things. He later apologized, but the reality was it didn't take much to break that facade and show his true colors. And that's not a negative perspective towards, like, everyone will disappoint you in the end. Not at all. I'm just saying, like, if you really loved her, you would still want the best for her, treat her the kindest you possibly can, even though you're part. I mean, even Sabrina, she even is like, well, I understand she's emotional about it. She would support Roz and Harvey being together. It would be rough, but she really does want the best for both of them, and she loves them both. And I don't know if I can say the same for Harvey, because when she comes back to the school, Harvey kind of, like, makes a mean joke about the Crucible and is very honest about being blunt to her. He's kind of rude about it a lot. And, like, while I do ship him and Roz, and I would be totally fine with them dating, like I said in the last episode, I kind of feel like he's jumping a little too quickly into another relationship when he was not that. I mean, what have they been broken up like 2 weeks, a week? I don't even know at most. And he's jumping ship real quickly from the quote unquote love of his life. I do love, though, Roz's perspective of kind of half giving into her feelings, but feeling like, are you just liking me because I'm a rebound? Also, could you not be weird and mess with my head? Can we get things kind of sorted? This is annoying. I kind of wish we were all friends or something was clear. I love Roz for telling Harvey, can you please talk to Sabrina? Because, like, he's a little bit of an idiot, so I don't think he got it. But she's trying to be like, honey, I can sense something's happening between us, but I am not a bad person. Can we just check with Sabrina that you guys are good and done and I'm not, popping in between something messy for my own sake as well as our friendships? So, yay, Roz, still love her. By the way, she's just so fucking cute. Like, she's adorable. I love her so much. I don't spend enough time talking about her, but let's be real. It's like, I'm all about the magic and those type of plot lines. This is when we start to see kind of the world crumbling down around Sabrina. And it's so beautifully done. Sabrina's trying to keep her cool, but she feels like on the outs when not only she sees something happening between Roz and Harvey, but she's not even getting to spend time with them. They are paired up and she's alone. So it's like, she's feeling more alone without that support she desperately needs to feel more connected to her light side. And then she innocently tries to help Theo with the rope trick, where if you tie this knot, it helps Billy, who is just so disgusting. Between him trying to view that moment when all those boys were pressuring Theo into taking off his clothes, and it was so realistically disgusting. That was really hard for me to watch. Like, that happens to people, and I don't know, does it just make you want to, like, burn their house on fire? That could just be me. I really don't like anyone being abused or bullied blanketly. I think we can all agree that's not fun to see anyone go through. But considering Theo is just now awakening to their sexuality and figuring out, do I feel comfortable with being naked? Do I still consider my boobs? Like, that level of in-between, which is already complex on its own to figure out, and being scrutinized and bullied during that pinnacle point of their transitioning is, like, next level evil. I mean, it just feels evil. It feels terrible. I don't think it's something where you can be like, yeah, I was a bit of a dick in high school. No, you were evil. So, fuck Billy. So, it makes sense why Sabrina would have helped out her friends. And I think while her friends are trying to understand she's a witch and come to grips with that, she's desperate to show and give that loving, like, let me bridge that gap between the two of you. But I think she's now starting to understand that cannot happen. I mean, a great example is, like, when she tried to give Harvey in the last season those enchanted colored pencils that would never become dull as a loving note. But he had just suffered from the death of his brother because of magic and witchcraft. And it's true, something so innocent like having Billy trip over his feet should have been an innocent way to bruise his ego and be the end of it. But the reality is magic is a responsibility because you have this quote unquote power and things can get out of hand. But it's more like it's an additional responsibility how you hand out that magic. That's great she was trying to help her friend out and she definitely learned her lesson. I'm not even faulting her. I initially was like, oh, Sabrina, that's so nice. This is a connecting moment that your friend's accepting you as a witch and you can help them in a way. And when Theo ended up having Billy trip down the stairs on purpose to get seriously injured, which again, I don't condone that shit, but like, Theo, I really get it. You were pushed to the ends of earth. Shit happens. It made Sabrina feel responsible for kind of like tainting her friend's morality and the goodness that she has inside her. And in addition to it, we got a little hint that the Dark Lord was kind of like whispering in Theo's ear. It might have not been fully Theo's decision, she kind of coerced and manipulated. So everything's going to hell, basically, in her human life. And this is what it made me think about. And this is, again, food for thought, just stuff you can think about in your own life if you're going through a difficult time. And I speak as someone who, if I'm sad, Like, you will not fucking see me. I am invisible. You will not be able to reach me at the least, because I don't like to be around people when I'm going through a tough time. It's a very private thing, and also I heal best when I'm alone. But I think a lot of people can kind of relate to this. You don't want to, like, pass on that sadness to anyone else, if that makes sense. But now let's transfer that idea into like a fictional book or movie type of idea. Now, when you're alone in real life, this could translate to real life too, so you can use this type of advice in that way. But I'm now transferring it to like a bigger like idea. Like example, I'm going to give this example of like Harry Potter and Voldemort, that type of thing. You want to be alone, but that's what evil, darkness, whatever you're against wants. They want you to be alone, easily attacked. It's easier to get in your head. You think that you're making the best decision for your peers. You don't want to give them the sadness. You don't want to put them in danger. That's what Sabrina was doing initially. But what happens is you become more vulnerable to suggestion. You can be killed off easier. And maybe, like example, if Harry Potter had been successfully killed off, he would, it would make ultimately, like you think, oh, I'll sacrifice myself, then all my friends will be safe. But then when you're gone, they are now then vulnerable. Like you have to make that strong choice to keep fighting, keep being involved. And the best course of action in a lot of books and movies is they always suggest you want to be around your friends. That's why Aunt Hilda was suggesting it. And it's great advice, because I know it's really tough. You don't want to put them through that, but you're going to have to deal with it. They are going to want to have be the ones with the best suggestions. They're going to make you feel your best, and you're going to be stronger as a group, because if you isolate yourself, ultimately they will by default get hurt, either because you're not there to help them and warn them, or you're then gone and then they then are then the next victims. So by default, you kind of have to just go through it together. It's like totally understandable Sabrina or any character would feel that guilt of being like, I wish I wasn't the cause and I wasn't putting you through this, but it's like, this is the circumstances and this is the best action. So it's so sad that she's feeling so separate from all her friends, watching them be influenced negatively. It's only confirming to her more to be isolated and away from them, which is what the Dark Lord wants. But in reality, if she could push through all of this and be like, Harvey, listen, this is the fucking deal. Guys, we have to stick together. I think Harvey would not be a great ally with all his pettiness. He is a petty guy at the end of the day. But Roz and, Theo would be great allies and put up a fight, and I think they would have a lot of really great ideas. I think if she could educate them on magic and spells, I could see them doing a lot of research and helping her execute things that could ultimately take down the Dark Lord or get her to where she wanted to. That's all I'm saying. It's just a food for thought. Side little mini in-between note, love Zelda and the whole bullying teacher situation. She never gets intimidated. I love the fact that she's like, oh, I'm not above bullying you back. You want to bully me? I'll bully you, girl. I always love her, like, nonchalantness when she was like, oh, it was one thing when she tried to kill me with dropping a gargoyle in my head, but, embarrassing me in front of the class with a frog coming out of my throat, like the gargoyle stone to head death was not a big deal. But the humiliation was. I loved when her sister comes in and is like, leave the familiar alone, like, don't attack the innocent, go attack the ultimate cause of the problem, which is honestly in a weird way could be leaked over to other plot lines, which is how well connected the show is. So I loved the whole ear in the worm, the suggestion, how she basically didn't end up ultimately killing her bully, but showing like, if you fuck with me, I will take it that far. You got a little hint of my power, which you can see why she admires the Dark Lord so much. That is very much what he executed idea-wise in this plan of action. Ultimately, he comes to her, and at this point, poor Salem, who should be fucking talking by now, is almost dead. People are getting claws on them. Oh, by the way, very hot moment between Sabrina and Harvey. It was really sweet to see them finally say they missed each other. Very romantic. Again, Harvey's a dick. But I know I'm going a little off course, but like, you can't really blame him for feeling so pushed around and trying to get over her. I can understand his opinion and influence, but I think he cuts her off before she can really explain something, and I don't see her as anybody but straightforward. She's actually really refreshing as a character, how she, like, do you ever watch something and when the character goes to tell another person, they don't just straightforwardly be like, we can't go after this plan because X, Y, and Z happened. They always put it in a way of just being like, I just know. And then you're like, oh my god, why don't you just say what actually happened? Why is it being written this way? Sabrina will just be like, X, Y, and Z happened. Let me give you the information straight up. So she's very clear, direct, and I think she would be very clear and direct with Harvey without misleading him and let him know the stakes. But he won't let her get a word out, and she's just so concerned about hurting him more, she allows it to be ambiguous and moves on because she's trying to give him what he wants. But Sabrina, what he wants might not be what he needs. So what ends up happening is she approaches the Dark Lord and makes a deal with him and is basically like, if I do this thing for you, will you please, make everything better? And he goes, I will. And he asks her to burn down the very school that is her kind of safe haven. A great representation of what, kind of saying like taking away your last connection, the last place you can feel comfort and somehow keep me at bay. And I kind of feel like he knew that she would resist him and he wanted to allow the stakes to get very high so he could ask it and it would seem like a logical idea. And I think he wanted her to resist to show like how powerful he is and how far his reach is. Again, master manipulator and deceiver. So she almost, so close. By the way, they kind of skim over this, but like, what do you think the janitor thought when he came into school the next day? And he was like, why is there all this gasoline everywhere all over the floor? Or worse, he's a smoker. He lights a match, goes up into flames. I'm just saying, how did they solve that? But Sabrina is like this close to lighting a match and burning down the school. He stops her at the last second. Again, kind of similar to Zelda, with the idea of just wanting to know, the willingness, just wanting to see, like, would you do it if I asked? But I have a theory about that. So he stopped her from doing that. And that's great because, like, what the hell would we do if she burned down the school? She'd carry that guilt. It would not be fun. So it was great that she didn't knock down the school for future plot lines. But this is where it gets more interesting. I think it was more than him wanting to know her willingness to do it. I think he really does love her or feel a connection for her. Now, this is not me supporting an abusive relationship, just to be clear, because this is what it technically is on a weird, grander scale. What I'm trying to say is, the part of her that's good, if that were to be crushed and truly, deeply, evilly manipulated, she wouldn't be the person she is. And he knows that if he pushes her to that level, she might just become another either mindless victim and just blanketly evil, or dissociated and just kind of empty. And that's not what he wants. He wants someone to be his quote-unquote prophet, secretly his waifu, and the reason why he's drawn to her is that mix between the two sides. Maybe that's why he was drawn to her in the first place psychically. I don't think he just picked her at random. Maybe he sensed the true goodness in her mom and the true, well, I don't know if her dad's evil, but I'm just trying to paint some ideas there. And I don't know, it doesn't make you like the Dark Lord more, but it gives you a perspective of what he wants. It kind of weirdly makes me think of I recently did a review on the OA Season 2. You should totally check that out, both the podcast and the show. Really great. But the guy who wanted to own and imprison OA, Hap, he really wanted, it wasn't just purely he wanted to own her. He really wanted her as a partner. He wanted her to respect him and love him because he loved that true personality. But because he owned her, because he would kind of imprison her, she could not ever love him. And it's a similar idea to the Dark Lord, except let's be real, the Dark Lord's a lot smarter than Hap. I'm just going to say that. He doesn't want to crush it out of her. He understands the repercussions if he did that. So that was like the perfect manipulation to show his power, get her to willingly do it, and above all, still maintain that part of her that he ultimately is in love with, that kind of influences every part of her. Now we go on to the play. This is like the big part. This is like the part that really sums up most of the episode and says so much. Honestly, I loved the perspective of it. They keep talking about the play, and you're kind of in the background, you understand what it's about, but it doesn't really like click in your head until the very end when you see it all come together. So it's all about this, like, their, you know, I don't know if it would be called is it the Black Bible, the Dark Bible? I don't know what they call their Bible, but the Bible for their coven, all about like witchcraft and stuff like that, tells the story about how Lucifer fell down from heaven and ended up influencing Lilith after she left Adam, because apparently Lilith was the first wife of Adam, and then later Eve was basically made, and how that was for them. And when Sabrina takes over the role of Lilith, it becomes first of all, it becomes a giant fanfic for the Dark Lord, who's probably is secretly watching. He loves seeing the fantasy of her acting as someone who's in love with the Dark Lord, pledging himself. He's kind of imagining that will be them in the future. But you get to like this trip down memory lane from Miss Wardwell, or the real Lilith, in the background watching. You see this memory, this kind of like it all started as good, and why has it gotten so bad? Teary-eyed moment for her. I did think it was interesting how they skim over this, but apparently Lilith was, I love how, of course, sexist Father Blackwood is making Lilith a little more subservient, but ultimately in the true text, Lilith said no to Adam, didn't want to have sex with him, didn't want to just be submissive, started to want to know the truth, and apparently the quote-unquote, the God didn't want to tell her the truth. So she basically was like, this is bullshit, I hate this, and ended up being drawn to Lucifer Morningstar, who was like, I want you to be yourself, and I want to show you the truth. If you dedicate yourself to me, I'll give you everything you've ever wanted, and that's a choice. And above all, before she even had met him, she was very capable. She was someone who was a survivalist, as Aunt Zelda said. We get little snippets when Nick, by the way, I forget to mention, like, Nick is totally putting on the moves on Sabrina throughout this episode. It's very cute and steamy. As they're developing this romance, Lilith did have her doubts around the way. We start to realize that at one point, Lilith was not unlike Sabrina. That beautiful mix between being a good person, but not wanting to just blanketly be a zombie and only do what someone else describes as good. She wanted to find her definition of what was good and bad. And above all, she just wanted all the information at hand. And she made a mistake and trusted the wrong person, as she did the first time. To be honest with you, Lilith would have been better on her own without anybody. She was doing great without anyone. In fact, actually, I had a thought. They mentioned Solstice in the play, or is it Solstan? It's her familiar. Her familiar comes back to life. The one she just casually murdered, by the way. That poor woman has been through things. It made me think, if her familiar was, so to speak, the first familiar, do you think the goblins that live in the forest and various familiars that exist in this world possibly see that her familiar is like their god, their quote-unquote first familiar? Lilith is like the first witch. Just, I don't know, interesting idea. Anyways, so we see that Lilith was one time not unlike Sabrina. Sabrina's kind of acting out this fantasy for the Dark Lord. It also makes you wonder is he just going through the rituals again with Sabrina and going to make her his new Lilith, ultimately never truly marrying her, kind of lost in the forever fantasy? Or is it different this time? Was he always lying to Lilith and he was never going to make her his? Or did he lose interest in her and Sabrina's the new person? He really feels a connection with her and wants to make her his. It makes you wonder about like the end goal, or does the Dark Lord even know what he wants? This is also a great moment too, because this is technically when Sabrina and Nick have their first kiss, and that's what I love about this show. This is a moment that in any other teenage show, whatever, would be a focal point. They'd zoom in, swell the music, and it would just be this big tension filled. But it's like, you barely even realize that is the case, or it's a big deal for Sabrina. In fact, Nick and Sabrina don't even really like gush about or worry about it. And not because they're not into each other, or it wasn't a big deal for them, but the show itself focuses on different themes. It focuses on Lilith's struggles, her sadness of knowing she didn't ultimately win, that she'll always be the weaker one, that in a way she'll always be controlled in a way she didn't want. I mean, that's why she chose to follow Lucifer. She didn't want to be controlled anymore. That's what she thought she was walking into. She feels sad about the person she once was and what she dreamed of and how it all came this far. And I'm sure she was sad about losing too, and maybe even seeing Sabrina straight up as her replacement, literally as Lilith. Beautiful moment. It's way more focused on that and her tears than it is this little minor moment for a teenage character. I thought that was great for that reason. Anyways, moving forward though, the end is very interesting. Sabrina and Nick end up having a conversation. By the way, I keep forgetting to mention this. Their like club, their like hangout or whatever, because of course there's just like a residential club hangout. Don't you wish, by the way, this is like, I want to know, I have Twitter. Feel free to tweet me. Do you guys in your town, whether you were a teenager or currently, have a hangout? Because if you don't, drink, and I'm not referring to just like if you just don't drink alcohol. Sometimes you don't want to fucking drink all the time, or you're on a diet, whatever your choice of non-poison is. Do you have a place you hang out at? And does it feel as homey as TV shows make it? Because I would die for a place like the one Sabrina and her friends used to go to, where it's like kind of a 1950s diner, kind of monster movie themed. You can have milkshakes and read comic books. Like, that is so fucking badass. If that was there in my town, or even the town over, I'd be there every other day. It just, oh god, that's the type of stuff I like really geek out on and wish, and like it makes you want to be in the world. Anyways, going forward, so there she's talking to Nick at her like witchy little place. And they have an interesting conversation about like how the Dark Lord's visiting her, and he asks her on point blank, would you have done it? Like push came to shove. And Sabrina argues, well, we'll never know. And it seems like that. It's a great way to end. I don't think it's a cop-out writing. But my favorite part is it ends in such a way where you're like, yeah, I don't know. Because it would, if she did it, would it just be out of the intention of saving her friends? Or is that little nugget of badness in her kind of blossoming? And we get a little bit of that answer when she voluntarily, no longer the Dark Lord wants it anymore, she steals that gum at the very end. She kind of gives a little smile. I think in a weird way, when she gives into her badness, she feels a little more like herself. It's not ultimately, I understand she feels the danger of truly giving up her goodness. Again, I talked about this in the OA. It's so much harder to be good than it is bad, because you can do one little thing and you're quote unquote bad. It seems like it's the same magnitude of like murdering someone, which is a terrible comparison, but people treat, if you do one thing, you're forever untrustworthy or whatever. But to be good, you just have to never fuck up. And that's a lot of pressure, because what, you fuck up one time, or something that might be seen as bad is really done with good intention, it gets into a whole moral dilemma ultimately. And Sabrina's afraid that if she gives into this bad, would that ultimately make her just quote-unquote not good? But it's like, no, Sabrina, you really, like, I mean, they're doing such a great job selling me on Sabrina really is good and she really is bad. It's both. And I feel that both sides are becoming more and more of an extreme version of her. So I love that little nugget. Love the little moment when kind of very much biblical reference that Lilith is washing the Dark Lord's feet, and it kind of unfortunately shows that he won and she's to be subservient to him. I kind of feel for her. I'm like, damn, you got me to really like Lilith at the end of this, and feel sad for her. I kind of care about whatever happens to her ultimately. I'm worried she'll like die in the end in some, not shootout. I guess it would be like cast off or whatever the term would be for magic powers. But the last thing I want to say before we move on to the next episode is Nick and Harvey. I've made it clear how I feel about Harvey right now. I still like him as a person, but the way he responds to this turmoil is showing me kind of who he is as a person. Nick, on the other hand, is constantly showing me him as a person. I like the fact that he's not ashamed of, like, remember in season 1 when he was having an orgy and he just kind of was unapologetically like, oh no, Sabrina, I'm still into you, but like, do you want to join this orgy? Or like, I'll go be with you. He's unapologetically himself. and he really lets Sabrina be herself. Like, when she's into Harvey or something like that, he will go protect Harvey, even though he feels a little jealous. He ultimately does what she wants because he respects that and can understand that. He doesn't pressure her into a romance. He doesn't punish her when she's not, doing exactly what he said. And ultimately, at the end of the day, he's less concerned about the development in their relationship, but he really is into her, and they have a lot of conversations that are more revolved around her or their friendship, which makes him kind of a better candidate. And let's be real here, like, as much as I don't have a problem with a mortal dating a witch type of idea, I think it would be more fun and makes more sense, and they would have more in common with a warlock and a witch being together. Also, out of the other witches and warlocks, while he isn't completely against the idea of doing something sinister, he just seems a lot more closer to shades of Sabrina, with making decisions that help everyone, wanting equality. He doesn't want to go around killing mortals. He's a lot closer to her in moral code in that way, without all the guilt. So he's kind of, right now for me, just seems like, if we're gonna break down things on a piece of paper, Nick Scratch just seems like, on paper and in person, it's just a better candidate. So it's less of me being like, fuck Harvey, and more like, ugh, Harvey, you're kind of a whiny, petty bitch. You gotta get it together, honey. But I know he lost his brother, whatever. I'm just kidding. If you like this episode, please feel free to subscribe, tell a friend, tweet at me, and become a Patreon supporter today. I would appreciate it greatly. I love you in the most platonic way possible. See you in the next episode. Bye!